When I applied for the overnight shift at the highway rest stop, I thought it would be easy. Keep the place clean, refill the vending machines, and make sure the bathrooms didn't get trashed. But the manager didn't hand me a mop or a schedule on my first night. He handed me a laminated sheet of rules. The rules looked ridiculous at first. Things like, if a car pulls in without headlights, do not go outside. Or, if someone asks for directions past midnight, tell them you don't know. By midnight, I was already uneasy. The vending machines hummed, the bathroom lights flickered, and every time I glanced at the parking lot, I swore the shadows were shifting. When the clock hit 12:15, I saw the first car pull in, no headlights. The car rolled slowly into the lot, its tires crunching against the gravel. I froze behind the counter, my eyes locked on the dark windshield. Whoever was inside didn't turn off the engine. The idle was deep, uneven, like it was struggling to breathe. The rule echoed in my head, do not go outside. The driver door creaked open, but no one stepped out. Instead, I heard the faintest sound, a wet shuffle like feet dragging across soaked carpet. My heart pounded as I gripped the counter, fighting the urge to lean closer to the glass for a better look. Then came a voice, a low, gravelly murmur that didn't seem to belong to a human throat. Gas, it rasped, as if trying out the word for the first time. The syllables were stretched and broken, like something was imitating speech. My hand twitched toward the keys, but I remembered the rule. No going outside. I forced myself to stay put, sweat sliding down my temple. The shadow in the car leaned forward, pressing against the inside of the windshield. It was too dark to see a face, if it even had one. The voice came again, louder this time. Gas. The sound rattled the windows as if the word itself had weight. My throat tightened. I kept my eyes down, trying to focus on the humming of the vending machine behind me. That was when the lights above me began to flicker. The fluorescent bulbs buzzed, stuttering on and off. Each time the lights cut out, I saw the car closer, though it hadn't moved. One blink, at the far side of the lot. Another blink, right in front of the glass doors. My chest seized, and I fought to stay still. Gas. The word thundered again, and the front doors rattled violently. I clenched my jaw, remembering the rule. Do not go outside. Do not open the door. The metal handles shook as if something on the other side was testing its strength. Then silence. The engine cut out. The rattling stopped. I blinked twice, and the car was gone. Just gone. No sound of tires, no taillights disappearing down the road. The lot was empty, as if it had never been there at all. My breathing was ragged. I staggered into the break room and collapsed onto the chair, staring at the rules again. My eyes landed on the next one. If you hear knocking from the bathroom after 1 a.m., do not answer. The stalls are already occupied. I checked the clock. 12:58. My stomach turned. As if on cue, the buzzing of the vending machines grew louder, drowning the silence. I gripped the laminated paper tighter, praying the knocking wouldn't come. At exactly 1 a.m., it started. A slow, deliberate tap against the bathroom door. One knock, then another, and another. The sound carried through the tiled walls, echoing into the empty rest stop. I stood frozen by the counter, blood rushing in my ears. The knocking didn't stop. It grew harder, sharper, like fists pounding wood. Each blow vibrated through the building, shaking dust loose from the ceiling. The bathroom lights flickered, and I swore I saw shadows moving under the crack of the door. Feet, but not quite shaped like feet, elongated, bent at wrong angles. The rules burned in my mind. Do not answer. The pounding intensified until I thought the door would snap off its hinges. Then suddenly it stopped. The silence was worse. I held my breath, waiting for the next sound. My heart leapt into my throat when I heard the whisper. We know you're in there. The voice came from the bathroom, but it wasn't just one. It was dozens layered on top of each other, all speaking the same words. We know you're in there. My hands shook as I backed away, praying they wouldn't come through. I backed into the break room, clutching the rule sheet like a lifeline. My eyes flicked across the paper, desperate for something to prepare me for what I'd just heard. My pulse stopped when I noticed a line I hadn't seen before, written faintly at the bottom. Do not respond to voices that know your name. Before I could process, the whispering in the bathroom shifted. It was still layered, but now it was saying something else. My name, over and over like a chant. Hearing it in dozens of distorted voices made my stomach twist. I pressed my hands against my ears and shut my eyes, rocking back and forth in the chair. I kept repeating to myself, it isn't real. It isn't real. But deep down I knew better. The air itself felt heavier, as if the building was bending to something unseen. When I finally dared to open my eyes, the bathroom was silent again. The light above its door flickered one last time before going out completely, leaving the corridor cloaked in shadows. I didn't dare go near it. I checked the clock. 1:45 a.m. Somehow, I still had hours to survive. I flipped the laminated sheet again, forcing myself to keep reading. The next rule made my blood run cold. At 2:15 a.m., someone will knock on the glass doors. Do not open them. Do not acknowledge them, even if it looks like someone you know. The seconds ticked by, agonizingly slow. I sat at the counter, my gaze fixed firmly on the floor tiles. Every instinct screamed at me not to look toward the front doors. The clock struck 2:15, and right on cue, the knock came. It wasn't a light tap. It was a sharp, deliberate rap against the glass, steady as a metronome. Knock, knock, knock. My throat was dry, my chest tight. I forced my eyes to stay down, tracing the cracks in the floor. The knocking grew louder, heavier. Then a voice joined it. Hey man, it's me. Open up. My heart stopped. The voice was familiar. It was my brother's. He'd died 3 years ago. I squeezed my eyes shut, clamping my hands over my mouth to keep from crying out. The voice outside grew more desperate. Please, I need your help. Don't leave me out here. The pounding shook the glass, so hard I thought it would shatter. Then, as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. When I opened my eyes, the lot was empty again. But something new caught my attention. Lying at the base of the door was a coin. Small, tarnished, and oddly heavy-looking even from a distance. I remembered the rules. Nothing mentioned a coin. My gut screamed at me not to touch it, but the way it glinted under the flickering light pulled at me. Against every instinct, I approached, careful not to look outside. When I bent down, I realized it wasn't like any coin I'd seen before. The surface was uneven, etched with strange symbols that seemed to move when I blinked. My reflection in its dull shine didn't look quite like me. It smiled when I wasn't. I shoved it into my pocket before I could think. Immediately the air shifted. The buzzing of the vending machines stopped. The building was too quiet now, like even the walls were holding their breath. I stumbled back into the break room and stared at the clock. 2:30. 5 minutes until the next rule kicked in. The one about staying in the break room with the lights off, from 2:33 to 3:01. I killed the overhead light and sat in the dark, my heart thudding like a drum. Shadows pressed against the edges of the room, thicker than they had any right to be. In the silence, I could swear I heard faint footsteps circling the building. At first, I told myself it was my imagination, but then came the scrape. Something sharp dragging across the windows outside. The sound made my teeth ache. It circled the rest stop, slow and deliberate, like it knew I was inside. I clutched the coin in my pocket, my fingers tracing its warped surface. The moment I touched it, the footsteps stopped. The scraping silenced. The stillness that followed was worse. It felt like holding my breath underwater, waiting for something to break. The clock ticked endlessly. Each second dragged like an eternity. Then, just as I thought I might scream, the air filled with static. Not from any speaker or machine, just raw static, humming in the air itself, making every hair on my body stand up. The static formed patterns, like whispers buried inside the noise. If I listened too closely, I could almost make out words. They weren't in English, but somehow I understood. They were calling me by name. I jammed my hands over my ears, rocking in the chair as the static grew louder. My eyes squeezed shut until, mercifully, the clock struck 3:01. The static cut out instantly. The lights flickered back on. The vending machines hummed again. But my hands were still shaking, and the coin felt hotter in my pocket. The sudden return of normal noise, the machines, the hum of electricity, should have comforted me. Instead, it felt staged, like someone had flipped a switch to lull me into letting my guard down. I didn't buy it. I pulled the coin from my pocket and held it in the light. The strange symbols were sharper now, easier to see. My reflection was still wrong, its grin wider than mine, teeth just a little too long. A new line caught my eye on the rule sheet, one I swear hadn't been there before. If you pick up what is not yours, you will carry its burden. My stomach dropped. The coin. The clock read 3:10 a.m. No new rule until 3:33. I told myself I'd be fine if I just stayed still, silent. But the moment I thought it, the bathroom light flickered back on. I froze. The bathroom door creaked open, though no one had touched it. A wet, slapping sound echoed from inside, like something crawling across the tiles. I backed away, whispering the rule to myself. Do not investigate the bathroom after 1:45. But the thing didn't seem to care about rules. It was coming out anyway. Shadows spilled into the hall like water. From them, a hand emerged, long, gray fingers dragging across the floor. It was too thin to be human, but too deliberate to be anything else. I bolted for the supply closet and slammed the door shut behind me. The lock barely held as something scratched at the outside. I bit down hard on my lip to stay silent. Minutes crawled by. The scratching slowed, then stopped. I held my breath until I was sure it was gone. When I stepped back out, the hall was empty again. The bathroom light was off. But the coin in my pocket pulsed. Not metaphorically, literally. It throbbed with faint heat, like a heartbeat. Each pulse sent a chill racing through my spine. The rules hadn't said anything about this, but I knew one thing. This coin wasn't just some cursed trinket. It was bait. And now I was hooked. 3:33 a.m. arrived. Another rule. Between 3:33 and 4:04, you may hear voices over the loudspeaker. Do not listen. Cover your ears. If you hear your own voice, you are already too late. I slid into the booth near the counter and pressed my palms to my ears. At first, there was nothing. Then the static crackled from the old intercom. The voices bled through, layered, distorted, rising and falling like waves. My chest tightened. They were speaking directly to me, each word carrying a weight that felt like hands pressing down on my lungs. I squeezed my ears tighter, humming to myself. It almost worked, until I heard it. My own voice, clear as day, whispering through the intercom. You shouldn't have taken the coin. The sound rattled me so badly my hands slipped. For a moment, I actually heard what it said next. Give it back and maybe you'll leave alive. I bolted upright, pacing the break room like a trapped animal. I wanted to throw the coin outside, but some part of me knew it wouldn't matter. Once you took something like this, it wasn't yours to return. The intercom crackled one final time. My voice again, softer, almost mocking. See you at 4:15. Then silence. I stared at the clock. It was 3:58. I didn't even want to know what was supposed to happen at 4:15. My hands trembled so badly the rule sheet slipped from my grip. When I bent to pick it up, my stomach turned cold. New writing had appeared at the bottom, faint but unmistakable. At 4:15, the one outside comes in. The clock's second hand ticked louder with every beat, each movement sinking into my chest like a hammer strike. The words on the sheet swam before my eyes. The one outside comes in. I didn't know who or what that meant, but I felt its presence before it arrived. The parking lot lights dimmed, as if swallowed by fog. The air grew heavy. Through the glass doors, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the lot. Perfectly still, perfectly silent. It didn't move closer. It didn't wave. It just stood there, facing the rest stop, its features blurred like static on a screen. I blinked, and in that blink, it was suddenly 5 feet nearer. By the time I realized what was happening, my legs were already carrying me backward into the break room. The figure never walked. It only flickered forward, vanishing and reappearing closer each time. I locked the break room door, though I knew locks meant nothing. My breath came out shallow. At 4:14, the figure stood just beyond the glass, inches away, its head tilted. Watching, 4:15 struck. The lights cut out completely. A sound like rushing wind filled the room, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, the figure was gone. But I wasn't alone. The smell of damp earth filled the room. Something dripped steadily onto the tiles behind me. I turned slowly, and there it was, a dark shape hunched in the corner, its back rising and falling with shallow breaths. It moved wrong, bending too sharply as it straightened up. My heart froze as its head swiveled toward me, though the body stayed still. Its face was covered, not with skin, but a shifting blur, as though reality refused to define it. The rule sheet slipped from my hand. I didn't dare move to grab it. My instinct screamed to run, but my legs had locked in place. The thing took one step forward, and the tiles groaned under its weight. Then silence. It tilted its head again, not at me, but at the vending machines. Slowly, deliberately, it raised its hand and pressed something against the glass. A coin. My coin. Or at least it looked the same, blackened, etched with impossible symbols. When it dropped into the machine's slot, the hum of the motors roared to life. The machine dispensed a single can. It clattered to the floor, rolling to my feet. The thing stood motionless, waiting, as if daring me to pick it up. I didn't move. Couldn't. The can hissed as though it were already open, and a thin mist curled from the tab. My reflection in the mist grinned again, whiter this time. The figure collapsed into shadow, vanishing completely. The only thing left was the can at my feet. My coin pulsed violently in my pocket, syncing with my heartbeat. The intercom crackled on. Not voices this time, laughter. Not human laughter, but layered, distorted. And underneath it all, a single phrase whispered in unison. Drink. I kicked the can away, but it rolled back toward me, defying gravity, defying logic. It stopped at my shoes. My hands shook as I tried to look anywhere else, but the mist kept pulling my gaze. The clock read 4:30. New rule. If offered a gift after 4:15, do not accept. But do not reject either. Pretend it does not exist. I forced myself to look away, staring hard at the rule sheet as if it could shield me. The can hissed louder, spitting mist that slithered across the tiles toward me. My chest felt tight, my lungs burning with every breath. The mist crawled up my legs, curling around me like hands. But I kept repeating the rule in my head. Pretend it does not exist. Pretend it does not exist. The laughter on the intercom died. The mist thinned. When I blinked again, the can was gone. But the coin in my pocket had cooled. Too cold, like it had been buried in the ground. I slumped into the break room chair, my pulse racing. The rule sheet trembled in my hand, now damp with sweat. I scanned for anything about what happens after 4:30, but the rules stopped there. Blank space. That terrified me more than the words. The silence didn't last. A rhythmic tapping echoed through the empty rest stop. Slow, deliberate, like knuckles rapping against glass. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the men's restroom. The one place I hadn't dared check since the shift began. Every part of me screamed not to go, but the tapping grew louder, faster, impatient. The overhead lights flickered out as I stepped closer. The restroom door creaked open on its own. The stench of mildew and copper washed over me. Something dark smeared across the tiles led straight to the last stall. I pushed it open, my hand trembling. At first, it looked empty. Then I noticed the words scrawled across the inside wall, written in what looked like ash. The rules keep you safe. Stop reading them, and they stop saving you. Behind me, the tapping started again, this time on the mirror. My reflection didn't match me. It was smiling, its mouth stretched too wide, teeth jagged and wrong. I stumbled back. The reflection pressed its hand against the glass. A coin lay in its palm, black, etched with symbols that seemed to crawl. My coin. My reflection mouthed the word. Mine. The mirror cracked, spiderwebbing outward. I turned to run, but the bathroom door slammed shut on its own. The fluorescent light buzzed above, and the reflection began clawing its way through the glass. Shards fell as its arm reached out, too long, bending unnaturally. I pressed against the stall door, my coin burning in my pocket again. It pulsed, as though begging to be used. Without thinking, I pulled it out. The reflection froze, its head tilting like a predator assessing prey. The coin in its palm vanished. Only mine remained, glowing faintly in my hand. The intercom clicked on. A voice this time, my manager's. Calm, cold, almost bored. "You shouldn't have kept it. They follow the coin." I shouted, demanding answers, but the voice cut me off. "If you survive until sunrise, return it to me. If not, well, you'll understand." The line went dead. The reflection lunged, half its body now spilling through the glass. Its skin looked like liquid shadow, dripping onto the tiles. Its grin widened, too sharp, too endless. The coin vibrated violently. Instinct screamed one word in my head: throw. I hurled it across the restroom. It clattered into the far stall, spinning before vanishing into the drain. The reflection screamed, a shriek of static and metal grinding. Its body snapped back into the mirror, the crack sealing instantly. Then silence. I stood gasping, staring at my own pale face in the glass. Normal. Human. But deep in the reflection's eyes, for a split second, I saw that grin linger. When I stumbled out, the rest stop was quiet again. The vending machines hummed. The lot stood empty. Only the rule sheet lay waiting for me on the counter. Except now, new words had appeared at the bottom. "Return the coin before your next shift. Do not fail, or the one outside comes in." I left the building before dawn broke, shaking, clutching nothing but my fear. The rules had saved me once. But sunrise didn't feel like safety anymore. It felt like a countdown, because as I stepped into my car, I froze. On the passenger seat, waiting neatly where I couldn't ignore it, was the coin. Cold, black, and mine again.